Welcome to Nitakis. My name is Mrs. Hormonal. This video I have prepared for the grade 12s to help them with their final exam preparation. In this video, I'll look at that November 2018, the paper 1. Right. Give the correct biological term for each of the following descriptions. Write on only the term next to the question numbers in the answer booklet. 121. A type of egg or the type of egg produced by reptiles that has an extra embryonic membrane. Well, let's be honest, grade 12s. We only taught you one type of egg, so that answer can only be amniotic egg. 122. The type of development in birds where the hatchling's eyes are open and their bodies are covered with down feathers, that you must know as precocial development. 123. The part of the brain that receives impulses from the macula, that will be the cerebellum, because the macula is responsible for balance, and the part of the brain responsible for balance is the cerebellum. 124. The dark pigmented layer of the eye is the choroid. Make sure you spell this word correctly. 125. The structure that connects the left and right hemispheres of the brain, that will be the corpus callosum. 126. The part of the brain that controls body temperature is the hypothalamus. And 127. The gas in the blood, which when increased causes an increase in the breathing rate, that we know is carbon dioxide. And 128. Plant growth responses to external stimuli, that's tropisms. And the last one, 129. A substance containing plant hormones used to kill unwanted plants, and that's a weed killer or a herbicide. 1.3. Indicate whether each of the descriptions in column 1 apply to A only, B only, both A and B or none of the items in column 2. We must write down A only, B only, both A and B or none next to the question numbers in the answer booklet. Now 131. When does the doubling of the DNA actually take place? Does it take place in prophase 1 or prophase 2? It takes place in none of them. Right, so your answer is none. Doubling of the DNA takes place at interphase, learners. 132. Condition affecting the cornea of the eye. Well, cornea of the eye can only be the astigmatism, not the cataract, so your answer is A only. And 133. Nutrition provided by the egg. Now, nutrition provided by the egg, that's by the yolk, so it's ovipary and ovovivipary, so your answer is both A and B. Right. 1.4. The diagram below represents a sequence of events that may take place inside the human female reproductive system. 141. Identify the process taking place at 1 in the diagram. Now, if you look at the diagram, you can see the sperm is touching the ovum. So that process can only be fertilization. 142. State the type of cell division that is taking place at 2. Now, can you see? You have one cell and it's becoming many cells. So what process allows for an increase in number of cells? Mitosis. 143. Name 2 functional extraembryonic membranes that are produced by structure C. Now, what membranes will be now formed by the blastocyst? Obviously, and it's functional, the chorion and the amnion. Okay, and that's functional in humans. Right, 144. Identify the stage of development indicated by A. A, obviously, is the zygote. Identify the stage indicated by B, that's a ball of cells, so it's the morula. And identify the stage of development. Identify the stage of development indicated by C. C is the hollow ball of cells, the blastocyst. The memo also accepts blastula. 145. Name the part of the female reproductive system where the events in the diagram above usually take place, that we know. Fallopian tubes. And then 146. Give the chromosome number of the cell at A if this cell is going to develop into a child with Down syndrome. Now, a zygote in a normal person has 46 chromosomes. But remember, a person with Down syndrome has one extra 21st chromosome, so that person will have 47 chromosomes. Right, 1.5. The diagram below shows the hormones involved in the homeostatic control of metabolism in the human body. X is a gland found around the larynx in the neck. Right, 151. Identify each of the following. What gland secretes the hormone A? Now, if you look at A, can you see A is going to have effect on this gland here in the neck? So that gland can only be that secretes this hormone that acts on the thyroid gland is a pituitary gland or the hypophysis. B. Identify each of the following. Hormone B. So what is hormone B? Hormone B can obviously only be thyroxine. 152. Name the mechanism in the diagram that regulates the level of hormone B. That's easy. Negative feedback mechanisms. 153. Half of gland X was surgically removed in a person. State two possible effects that this would have on the secretion of the hormones referred to in the diagram. Very nice. There will be less of thyroxine that will be secreted. And to compensate for that, there will be more thyroid stimulating hormone that will be secreted. Question 2.1. The diagrams below represent various phases of meiosis. 2.1.1. Identify the phase of meiosis in diagram A. Now, what is happening at A? You can see homologous chromosomes are formed, so you can definitely see and know that this is prophase 1. B. Identify the phase at B. Here, can you see there are whole chromosomes that are moving to opposite poles? So it's anaphase 1. And then 2.1.2. Draw a label diagram, to show the cells that will be formed at the end of meiosis from the cell in diagram C. Now, these two top chromatids will move to the top, the clear ones, and the shaded ones would move to the bottom. And can you see they are different sizes? So that's how you would draw them. So there we are. The two clear ones, one is long, one is short, and the two shaded ones, one is short and one is long. So what did they want? They wanted you to draw the two cells, that each cell contains unreplicated chromosomes. They're the correct size, and then any two correct labels. Right. 2.2. Read the extract below about a medical condition in male babies called cryptorchidism. Now, cryptorchidism occurs in newborns when one or both of the testes do not descend into the scrotal sac at birth, but remains inside the abdominal cavity. Cryptorchidism occurs in approximately 3 to 5% of full-term male infants, while approximately 1/3 of premature male babies are born with this condition. If the testes do not descend naturally by the age of 1, treatment is needed. Treatment may involve administering testosterone, but the most common treatment is surgery. If cryptorchidism is not resolved, it may lead to infertility when both the testes do not descend and an increased risk of testicular cancer by the age of 30 to 40 years. Now, 2.2.1. State one function of testosterone not mentioned in the extract above. Now we know testosterone is going to be needed for spermatogenesis. Testosterone stimulates the development of the secondary sexual male characteristics. And you can give examples here as the memo wants. Alright. 2.2.2. According to the extract, state two ways in which cryptorchidism is treated. You can see there. You can administer testosterone or surgery. 2.2.3. What percentage of premature male babies are born with cryptorchidism? Now it says here in the passage 1/3 of premature babies are born. So a third is obviously 33 and a third percent. That's how you write it. Then 2.2.4. From the extract, give one reason other than fertility why cryptorchidism needs to be treated if the condition is not resolved naturally. Of course, you can see it here. It will increase the risk of testicular cancer. And then 2.2.5. Explain why undescended testes may lead to infertility in young males. Now we know the temperature of the testes will be too high. There'll be increased pressure, poor circulation of blood. Sperm will not mature, spermatogenesis will not take place, or it will be negatively affected. Right. Carrying on, 2.3. Some women take longer to fall pregnant compared to others. A woman with a normal, fertile male partner who takes longer than 12 months to fall pregnant is said to be subfertile. An investigation was conducted to determine the effect of BMI, body mass index, and smoking on subfertility. Body mass index is calculated as BMI is equal to your mass in kgs over height in meters squared. A total of 2,587 women between the ages of 20 and 30 participated in the investigation. All of the women who were at least 20 weeks pregnant had planned to fall pregnant and conceive naturally. The following information was obtained from each woman: height and mass, time taken to fall pregnant in months, and smoking habits. Of the total number of women who participated, 1,510 women were subfertile. In the graph you are given, it's the percentage of non-smoking and smoking women who are subfertile in each BMI category. You have the percentage of the subfertile women in the different BMI categories: less than 20, 20 to 24.9, 25 to 29.9, and then 30. 2.3.1. And then the darkened bar is non-smoking and the clear bar is a smoking. 231. Give one reason why the women were asked for their height and mass. Why did we need their height and mass? Why? To calculate their body mass index. 232. Determine how many of the participants were subfertile smokers with the BMI of greater than 30. So we are here, smokers. So it's 41 over 100. Let me write my 4 clearly. And what's the total? 1,510 that were subfertile. And that will give you your answer as in the memo. Right. 233. Suggest why only women with planned pregnancies were included in this investigation. Only women that had planned pregnancies will know how long it took for them to fall pregnant. 234. State one factor that was kept constant in this investigation. And this is where you must read for those answers in this passage here. So, they were all of the same age, which was ages of 20 and 30. They were pregnant for the same amount of time. They had planned to fall pregnant and they had conceived naturally. So if you can see here, this is where it is in the passage. Right, 235. Based on the information in the graph on page 12, what advice should be given to women who want to increase their chances of falling pregnant? Now, if you're looking at this information here on the graph, what information and advice would you give them? Do not smoke if your BMI is between 20 and 30. Okay. So, if you look at your graph, you can see that here. Percentage of subfertile women. So from here, this is where we got our answer. Right. 236. The investigation was carried out in another country and the results below were obtained. Explain why the results of the original investigation can be considered to be reliable. If you look and see that we have very similar results from the first and the second results are almost very, very similar. Okay? And why is it reliable? Most importantly, I would have went for that the second was a repeated investigation, so that's why it increases reliability. Okay, so next one. That was a nice question. 2.4. Study the diagram below. This is of the ear. 241. Give one function of part A. What is part A? That's the auditory canal. So the auditory canal transmits sound waves to the tympanic membrane, or it secretes earwax or cerumen. One function of part E. E is the eustachian tube, and we know it equalizes pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane. Give one function of part F. F is the round window. What does it do? Release pressure from the inner ear. 242. Write on only the letter of the part where sound is transmitted in the form of a pressure wave in a liquid. Of course, that's the cochlea. And that's C. Write on the letter name of the part where sound is transmitted in the form of an electrical impulse, and that we know is obviously D. 243. Explain the effect of the receptors in region C, which is the cochlea, are damaged. What will happen? Then, if the receptors are damaged, the receptors cannot convert the stimulus into an impulse. No impulses are transmitted to the cerebrum, or fewer impulses, and the person will not hear anything or hearing is impaired. Right. 244. Describe how parts of the middle ear, including the membranes, assist with amplifying sound. So, The sound vibrations are transmitted from the large tympanic membrane to the small oval window through ossicles. And these are arranged, the ossicles are arranged from largest to smallest, and this concentrates the vibrations, amplifying them. Nice question. Make sure you write this down. And the last one, 245. Describe the role of the semicircular canals in maintaining balance. So, a change in speed and direction of movement stimulates the cristae. The stimulus is converted into an impulse. The impulse is transmitted to the cerebellum via the auditory nerve. The cerebellum sends impulses to the muscles to restore balance. Again, grade 12, this is an answer you should have written down. It comes out a lot. So, write it down so that you can just memorize and regurgitate when you ask this. Right. 3.1. The diagrams below represent the growth responses of two different plant organs to external stimuli. So there you have your two diagrams. 3.1.1. Name the group of plant hormones that is responsible for the growth response observed in the diagram. That can only be auxin. 3.1.2. Name the external stimulus at A. That can only be light. Name the external stimuli at D. That can only be gravity. 3.1.3. Give one observable reason why organ B is a stem. Because it is bending towards light. Okay? Part B is bending towards light and A is positively phototropic. 3.1.4. Explain the growth response observed in plant C, in the plant organ C. So there we can see the root is bending towards gravity. So the auxins accumulate on the lower side of the root. The high concentration of auxin on the lower side of the root inhibits growth. The lower concentration of auxin on the upper side stimulates growth, causing uneven growth. It causes the root to bend downwards, and this is positive geotropism. This is also a very nice question. Write it down, memorize it, let it be part of your notes, and when they ask you this in the exam, you have a set answer to memorize and regurgitate back. Right, 3.2. The diagram below represents two possible pathways A and B, which a nerve impulse may follow in the human body. So there you have the brain, there you have the spinal cord, you have pathway A and B. 3.2.1. Which pathway, A or B, represents a reflex arc? Now, if you look at the answer, you can see it's A. Can you see why it's A? Can you see A has the complete reflex arc? It has a sensory neuron, interneuron, and motor neuron. Can you see here in pathway B, the interneuron is missing there? Right. Give 3.2.2, 3.2.2, give a visible reason for your answer. I just told you A. The impulse does not travel to the brain. It goes directly from the receptor to the effector by the spinal cord. So in my answer, I explained to you it's the interneuron that's missing. But this pathway, why it is not a reflex arc, can you see? It does not go to the spinal cord, to the effector via the spinal cord. It goes straight to the brain. That's the answer that they wanted. Right. 3.2.3. Describe the importance of a reflex action in the human body. Now, reflex actions allow for a person to respond rapidly without thinking to a stimulus to prevent damage or harm to the body. The last point is a compulsory mark, so make sure you know that. 3.2.4. Identify the part of the nervous system identified by 1. That is the nerve. I would have said it was the spinal cord. Right. 3.2.5. Explain one way in which the myelin sheath is important for the functioning of the neurons. Now, the myelin sheath is the insulator, and it speeds up the transmission of the nerve impulse, and it prevents a short circuit. Right. 3.2.6. Describe how the person would be affected if the axon of neuron 2 was cut. They're asking you what will happen if the axon of the motor neuron was cut. So what will happen? The person would be able to feel the stimulus, but would not be able to react, and the impulse will not be transmitted to the effector. 3.2.7. Describe path B. That's a nice question, very nice. So the receptor receives the stimulus, converts it into an impulse, which in the picture you can see it's transmitted via the sensory neuron to the spinal cord, and then it goes to the brain or the cerebrum for interpretation. Then the brain sends the impulse to the motor neuron. Can you see that? Which conducts the impulse, transmits the impulse to the effector to bring about response. So here you can see it's completely skipping out. There's no interneuron here. That's a nice question and really nice higher thought question. And it was 2 marks that was compulsory, which was brain, cerebrum, and interprets impulse, and any other 4. So the compulsory marks are important. Right. 3.3.1. The graphs below show the effects of eating many small meals and eating fewer large meals on blood glucose and insulin concentrations in a normal person. The arrows on the graphs below indicate when meals were eaten. So there's it here, the arrows, as you can see. Then the normal blood glucose concentration is 100 milligrams per deciliter. And you can see it in the line in the graph. 331. State what happens to the blood glucose concentration immediately after a meal is eaten. So can you see what happens after a meal is eaten? Can you see what's happening? The blood glucose concentration will increase. Right. 332. Use the information in the graph. Tabulate 2 ways in which eating fewer large meals and eating many small meals affect the blood insulin differently. This is a very nice question. Here you can see you got a mark for the table. Now, for the first one, for fewer larger meals, the maximum blood concentration is higher. Hope you can see it here. Right, it's between 160 and 180. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong graph. Fewer larger meals, you can see that's the... So the maximum blood concentration is between 160 to 180. You can see that there. Eating more smaller meals, what is it? It's between 120 and 140, as you can see there. All right. Now, minimal blood insulin concentration is lower. It's much lower, and here they even give you between 20 to 30 milligrams, and you can see that there. And for the smaller meals, the minimum blood glucose concentration, blood insulin concentration is higher. It's about 40, as you can see there. Right, 3. The blood insulin concentration rises and falls 3 times. There you can see 1, 2, 3. Here, in the smaller meals, the blood insulin concentration rises and falls 6 times. Nice question. That's a very nice question. And then for the fewer large meals, there's a large change in the insulin concentration. You can see that large changes in the insulin concentration. Right? And here in the smaller meals, you can see there are small changes in the insulin concentration. And the memo also accepts numbers, but you can just also talk about it generally. 5. For the last one, insulin concentration drops below minimum glucose concentration in the big one. In the fewer larger meals, and the insulin concentration varies above and below the minimum glucose concentration. So here it means the insulin concentration drops below the minimum glucose. So see, it's below. Can you see that dotted line is below the glucose concentration? You can see it. Whereas for the smaller meals, the insulin concentration, which is the dotted line, varies above and below the minimum. Right, so this was a very nice question. I would take this question, go over it, master it, in case you get this question again. It's a very, very nice question. But 3.3. Explain why eating many small meals per day is better for a diabetic person than eating fewer large meals a day. 4 marks. So there's 2 answers. A diabetic might not produce sufficient insulin. So when eating small meals, there's less glucose that enters the blood. Less insulin is needed to return the blood glucose back to normal. So that's one of your set of answers. Or you could have said, a diabetic might not produce sufficient insulin. When eating fewer larger meals, more glucose enters the blood. More insulin is needed to return the blood glucose to normal. All right, whichever answer you would have said. I really like this question. It is a very nice question with the differences. Okay, so you had a choice to either talk generally or you could put your numbers in there if you wanted. All right. Thank you, grade 12s, for watching this video. I hope you learned a lot. Join me and watch all my other videos as well.